Here's a sentence you've heard in some form 1,000 times. More air. More support. Bigger. Push more. Come on, give me more. If you've ever sung in a choir, taken a voice lesson, or stood in the back of a rehearsal room, you've heard somebody say it. Maybe you've said it yourself. Something isn't working. The high note cracks, the phrase runs dry, the sound goes thin. And the fix that comes flying out of everyone's mouth is always the same. More. I want to open this episode by telling you something that took me a long time to fully trust. When it comes to breath, more is almost always the wrong answer. More doesn't fix a leak. It just helps you run out faster. Now, to be fair, every so often a singer really does need more. They're under-energized, the instrument's starving for power, and opening up the airflow is exactly right. But that singer is rare. Most of us live at the opposite end. We're over-pressurized, overblown, hunting for wild boar, shoving more air at the problem than the problem ever asked for. So when you take somebody who's already doing too much and tell them to do more, you don't close the leak. You widen it. Now there's a fresh problem sitting on top of the old one. I'm Drew Williams Orozco, and this is a two-part episode written by Josh Manuel, the founder of VoSci, about doing the opposite of what your instincts are screaming at you. We're going to build breath from the ground up, how it works, why more betrays you, and how to figure out what's really going wrong when you run out of air. Part 1 is the foundation. Part 2 is where we go hunting for the leak. Let's start at the very bottom. How we actually breathe. Almost every time I get a new student, the first thing I ask them, how do we breathe? I get a funny look every single time. It feels like a trick question, but I'm not asking for anything fancy. I just want a high-level, mechanical picture of what's happening, because most singers have never once stopped to think about it. So here it is. Your brain sends a signal. The diaphragm, a big dome-shaped muscle sitting under your lungs, contracts and flattens downward, shoving the organs beneath it out of the way. That opens up a vacuum in the lungs. And nature hates a vacuum. So the second your mouth opens, air comes rushing in to fill the space. That's your inhale. You don't really do it, you let it happen. Then the exhale. For ordinary breathing, you don't push the air out at all. The diaphragm just relaxes. Your ribs, your tissues, the whole elastic scaffolding of your torso springs back towards its resting shape, and that recoil squeezes the air out of you. Then it starts over. In, out, without a single conscious thought. I love starting here because it demystifies the entire thing. Breathing is a simple, elegant, automatic process. And once a singer can see how simple it is, we can start asking the interesting question. How do we, as singers, modify that automatic process? Because we obviously don't want all the air to come whooshing out the instant we relax. We want to ration it. We want to stretch it across a long musical line and stay in control the whole way. But you can't intelligently modify a mechanism until you understand what the mechanism is doing on its own. Managing the air, the real job of support. So here's the modification. Left alone, your exhale wants to dump its air fast. As singers, we want to slow that down, resist the collapse, meter the air out over time. That slowing is what people are really gesturing at when they say support. And the muscles that do it aren't where most singers think. They live in the torso. The pectorals, the lats, the external intercostals, those little muscles between your ribs that lift and spread the rib cage open. Now, the surprising part. Those are inspiratory muscles. Their day job is breathing in, opening, expanding, not pushing anything out. So when you keep them switched on, you hold the rib cage open instead of letting it cave. You take the pressure off your lungs. You fight the collapse of the exhale. The whole thing slows down, and just like that, you've bought yourself control. This is one of the most misunderstood corners of singing, and it's one of my favorite places to start a brand new student. Because when you get the framing right and you point a singer at the correct musculature, this is an area where people can find real, fast success. You can make somebody noticeably better in a single lesson just by getting the body involved in the right way. It's tangible. It's something they can actually feel happening. That makes it just about the perfect thing to teach early. Find the feeling. So, how do you get a singer to feel that expansion? I lean heavily on pulling. Clasp your hands and pull them apart against each other. Pull a towel apart. Almost anything where you're pulling against resistance will start to wake the right muscles up. I'm less fond of squeezing, though squeezing works too. You can squeeze a mic stand, a music stand, the edge of a lectern. You can make fists and press your pinkies into your ribs. You can do partner drills where two people try to pull each other's hands apart. And here's a fun one. Think of a big rock star pose, arms thrown up in the air, the climax of the song. Singers have been doing that forever, whether they understand why or not. Throwing the arms open cracks the chest wide and fires up exactly the muscles we're after. Anything that creates that expansion is the goal, because expansion is the sensation we're trying to build. But every one of these cues comes with the same catch, and it's a big one. They all drag in muscle groups you don't want. The shoulders, the arms, sometimes the whole upper body. None of that is required for breath support, and you obviously can't stand on a stage clasping your hands and grimacing your way through a ballad. So the cues are a crutch, training wheels. We use them to find out what the engagement feels like and what it does to the voice. And then we have to learn to do the same thing without them, chasing that same expansion with nothing but our own awareness. And here's the part that nobody tells you. Even after years of this, I still come back to these cues in my own practice. Because a breath support is the one corner of singing that's real, physical work. And anything that's real work fades the second your attention wanders off. When you're busy thinking about your pitch, your words, your phrasing, the faces in the third row, that's the exact moment your breath support quietly drops to half effort. So the whole game is building the conditioning until the right amount of work just becomes the way you sing, without thinking about it. And that conditioning takes deliberate, repeated, focused practice, even for the pros. Tension isn't the enemy. Now, the second you start asking a singer to engage their body, somebody gets nervous, because we've all been told that tension is the villain of singing. So let me clear this up. There is going to be tension. Tension is not the enemy. Tension is essential. You don't make a single sound without it. Phonation itself is tension. So the question is never whether you've got tension, it's where that tension lives. For breath support, we want that tension low in the body. The pectorals, the lats, the external intercostals. Some singers even find it helps to squeeze the thighs or big lower body muscles. And there's a real logic to that. Here's why. If you don't hand the body a specific job, a clear, put the tension right here, it'll dump that tension wherever it likes. And for a lot of people, where it likes is the neck, the chin, the jaw, the tongue, all the wrong places. So when I watch a student sing, the red flags are the things creeping up above the shoulders, the neck bulging, the chin jutting forward and tightening, anything climbing upward. The neck has no business in breath support, so when it lights up, I'm not looking at too much effort. I'm looking at the opposite. The body isn't engaging at all down where it should, so the tension had nowhere useful to go and went hunting for trouble. The fix is almost always the same. Give that tension a destination. Re engage the torso, hand the big lower muscles a real job, and the neck and jaw usually let go on their own. The work is finally happening where it belongs. The subglottal pressure principle. Now, I want to introduce a concept and then I want to immediately talk you down off the ledge about it. Subglottal pressure. Subglottal pressure is simply the amount of air pressure that builds up beneath your vocal cords and pushes up against them. Sub, below, glottal, the glottis, the space between the folds. Pressure under the folds, that's the whole thing. Now, the talk down. For 99% of singers, understanding subglottal pressure in any precise way is pure nerdery. You are never going to be mid phrase thinking, my subglottal pressure's a touch high, let me dial that back. It doesn't work like that, and it gets stranger. We can't even measure it directly in a healthy person. To get a true reading, you'd have to physically go in underneath the vocal fold, which is not something anyone's ethically doing to a healthy singer. There are some clever lab tricks that get close, but they need equipment you'll never have in your living room. So why bring it up at all? Because the principle behind it is one of the most useful ideas in all of singing. And the principle is this. We all sing with more pressure than is strictly required to make sound. Read that again. More than is required. That's not the same as more than is desirable, though plenty of us are guilty of that too. It just means the baseline reality of phonation is surplus. There's always a little extra pressure meeting the folds. Every single one of us is working with a margin of too much. And once that really lands, once you accept that you're almost certainly oversupplied, the whole more instinct just falls apart. Because if you've already got more than you need, adding more was never going to solve anything. It only makes it harder. That's the payoff of the whole idea. Not a number, a direction. So where does the air actually go? Which brings us to the real question, and the one we'll spend all of part 2 answering. If you're running out of air and you've already got more pressure than you need, then the problem was never the amount of air. The problem is you're wasting it. Air gets wasted in a few specific, fixable ways. It leaks through the folds that never fully meet. It blows out the front on sloppy onsets and hard consonants. It gets burned trying to sing everything at full volume when the music never asked for that. Not one of those gets better with more air. Every one of them gets better the moment you find the leak and close the gate. So that's where we're headed. In part 2, we go diagnostic. We'll talk about what your vocal folds are actually doing when you start a sound. Why a breathy onset is quietly costing you half your phrase. How to tell the difference between a problem you can fix in a week and one that takes 3 years. And the strange truth that the way singing feels is often the exact opposite of what's really happening inside you. Until then, here's your one assignment. Stop reaching for more. The next time a phrase falls apart, resist the urge to inhale like you're about to go underwater and shove all of it at the problem. Get curious instead. Ask where the air is going. That single shift in instinct is worth more than any breathing exercise I could give you. And if you want to put all of this to work, to watch your own air, your own onsets, your phrases holding up or falling apart in real time, that's what we built VoSci to do. It's the practice tool I wish I'd had when I was sorting this out for myself. It shows you what your voice is doing while you're doing it, so you can quit guessing and start training the thing that actually needs the work. Come find it over at www.voicescience.org. Go see your voice for yourself. That's part one. Next time, we find the leak. Until then, keep singing smart.